So here it is, the MacBook Air of 2022 with the M2 chip. Now this is a highly anticipated MacBook from Apple, and this is going to be exciting for a lot of people. Now sales start tomorrow and pre-orders have been up for a while. But in this video, we're going to be unboxing it and taking you through the M2 MacBook Air and telling you some of the interesting things that we found out about the device and some of the not so interesting things that will probably help you make the decision whether or not you should buy the M2 MacBook Air. So let's quickly get started with the unboxing and then we'll take you through the laptop itself. Now what we have here is the new midnight color. There are 4 colors this time around. So you have the silver, space gray, this midnight color, which is mostly black. And then you also do get the starlight, which is more of a gold tint. Now I did a hands-on with the MacBook Airs when they were launched back in June. So if you guys are interested in checking out all the colors, we'll have that on the video, but you can also go check out that video. We'll have it linked on the top right in the info tab. Now, the MacBook Air in India starts at 1,19,000 rupees, which is up from the M1 MacBook Air, which now is available for under 1 lakh rupees as the starting price. Spec it all out, all the way up, you can go almost to 2,40,000 rupees for the M2 MacBook Air. And at that point, I feel that you should totally switch to the MacBook Pro 14-inch or the 16-inch MacBook Pro. And depending on what kind of specs you want, you can get a better deal with a MacBook Pro. So most people are going to opt in for the base model of the MacBook Air, and for students, that's going to be a really great deal. As far as the build is concerned, this design is now more like the MacBook Pro 14-inch or the 16-inch. So you do get a new sort of unibody shell. It's more squared off than the previous generation of the MacBook Air, which did have a taper, and then you do have the feet sort of raising it up. As far as thermals and all of those things are concerned, we'll be testing out the MacBook Air in depth and doing a more usage-based review for you guys. So if you have any particular questions about that, you can let us know in the comments below. Also, between the midnight and the starlight, which are the 2 new colors, if you want a more matte black sort of finish, the midnight will definitely be the choice. But midnight is extremely fingerprint friendly, which means that it attracts fingerprints like anything, and you'll find yourself constantly wiping it if you do have an OCD like I do. In that case, I would recommend that you go for the space gray or the starlight color and not the midnight color. But if you don't mind the smudginess and the fingerprints, then you can definitely pick the midnight color, although it does look great when it's all clean and wiped down. So as far as the M2 MacBook Air is concerned, you get 2 tiers off the bat. So you can pick the 8-core CPU with the 8-core GPU, or you can pick the 8-core CPU with the 10-core GPU. Now, 8GB of RAM and 256GB of storage comes off the bat for the base model, which will be enough for most people. But if you're going to be upgrading this, I would highly recommend that you not only upgrade the RAM, which you can take up to 24GB, so you can choose either 16 or 24GB. And then for storage, you can go up to 2 terabytes. So I would recommend at least getting 512, which you do get as standard with the higher tier model. So I would recommend that you go in for the higher tier model if you're going to be doing anything more than basic web browsing, sending emails, and basic document processing, which is what people at college would do. So if you're buying this for college, the base model will be more than sufficient. Now, as far as the display is concerned, it's got a new display, which is a 13.6-inch display. It's a liquid retina display. You don't get the XDR and you don't get the ProMotion that you get in the MacBook Pro 14-inch. You still get the notch, which is the new design, and in the notch is the new 1080p FaceTime HD camera. So you do get that camera benefit there as well. The keyboard is also the new style keyboard. It does have an ambient light sensor, but they've removed the keyboard brightness from the keyboard, and now you have to access it from the Mac OS menu, but you can adjust it if you want to yourself. One interesting thing is that you can't really see the speakers on the MacBook Air. You don't know where the sound is coming from. After much investigation, I found out that it's coming from behind the keyboard. So the sound is actually pretty nice, and we'll have a comparison of the MacBook Air and the MacBook Pro on the screen for you right now. So go check that out. The M2 chip also offers some advantages as far as the performance uplift is concerned. Now, we didn't test it in depth, but we were able to play some games on it off the bat, and they play well. The fact that you can now connect a PlayStation controller directly with the MacBook and play some games, whether it's an Xbox controller or a PlayStation, they'll connect quickly and you'll be able to play games on this. Some games are supported with the controller, so you'll be able to play those without any problem. And some games are also supported with the new M2 chips, basically the M1 chips and the M2 chips, and those play well on the MacBook Air as well. So if you're doing some casual gaming, the MacBook Air can be a good choice for you. And you do have an improvement in the display as far as the brightness is concerned as well. So you do get 500 nits of brightness on the new display. And plus you do get the additional screen real estate around the notch, which was previously missing. So you do get a larger display as well. The overall MacBook is thinner and lighter in comparison to the previous generation one. And you do get two USB-C ports, which are Thunderbolt 4 ports, and they're also USB 4 ports with USB 3.2 Gen 1 also supported. As far as charging is concerned, you get support for up to 67 watts of charging. If you're buying the higher tier model, you can pick either the 67 watt charger or the dual USB charger. We've got the dual USB charger, and it is pretty useful. So if you're somebody who does have an iPhone with the MacBook, you can charge both the devices together at the same time. But bear in mind, if you're peaking out your MacBook with any kind of performance, if you're rendering or video editing, then more juice will be automatically allocated to the MacBook Air, and hence your charging will be lesser on the other device which you've plugged in. The new MacBook Airs also have the Magsafe Connector, and these cables are color coordinated. So you get the midnight color, you get a matching charge cable, which was not the case with the MacBook Pro 14-inch or the 16-inch, which did come with standard white cables. One advantage is that with the Magsafe now you do get both your USB ports empty, which previously you had to charge from one USB port and you only had one useful USB port. If you are charging the MacBook, now you can charge via the Magsafe port, and then your two USB ports or the Thunderbolt ports remain free. So that's an advantage. You still continue to get the 3.5mm headphone jack. I would have liked to see a SD card reader because that could be useful for amateur photographers or videographers, but that is missing on the MacBook Air. So they automatically need to switch to the MacBook Pro if they do want an inbuilt SD card reader, or you can get one of those dongles which allow you to do that. Now, what are the disadvantages? This doesn't have any active cooling. So if you want active cooling, again, MacBook Pros are the option. You can pick from the 13-inch MacBook Pro or the 14 or the 16-inch MacBook Pro, which all come with active cooling. This one does not have active cooling. So if you have any high performance loads that you want to be putting on your MacBook, then picking something with active cooling would be recommended. For the external monitors or external displays, if you enjoy attaching an external display to your MacBook, you can only attach one to the MacBook Air. So if you want more than one display being attached to your MacBook, then the MacBook Air will not suffice. This is pricier in comparison to the previous generation of the MacBook Air, and that is basically due to supply shortages and chip shortages. And Apple has been able to increase the price of this. And at this time, you can still pick up the M1 MacBook Air for about 1 lakh rupees as the base starting price. And if you go to Amazon and third-party vendors, they'll actually give you a pretty interesting discount on the previous generation of the MacBook Air. So if you want to save some money and you don't really need the performance uplift or the new design or the new color, you can still pick the M1 MacBook Air, which was still a pretty good unit from Apple, one of the best-selling M1 laptops, including their old laptop series, was the M1 MacBook Air. That's our video. If you enjoyed it, don't forget to smash the like button. If you have any particular questions about the MacBook Air with the M2 chip, let us know in the comments section below. This has been Bharat. You've been watching iGyaan. I'll see you guys in the next one.